Universities of Ancient India, VIKRAMASILA, 800 AD to 1203 AD. History. The Vikramasila Vihara, that is a Buddhist monastery, was a famous seat of learning situated on a hillock on the banks of the Ganga in northern Magadha, present-day Bihar. The place was just near Nalanda, although the exact location of the Vihara cannot be ascertained. Dr. S. C. Vidya Bhushana identified it with Sultanganj in Bhagalpur district and Cunningham, with the village Silavo near Badagon. It was founded by King Dharmapala in the 8th century AD. He gave liberal endowments to the university so as to provide for free boarding and lodging to resident and non-resident monks studying at the place. All throughout the existence of the university, that is up to 1203 AD. When its tragic end came, the successors of King Dharmapala continued to give bountiful donations to the institution. Buildings. The buildings at Vikramasila were well planned and accommodative. There were 108 temples and 6 college buildings, spread out like a lotus petals, with a beautiful Mahabodhi temple in the center with its 6 gates leading to the 6 colleges. Each of the 6 buildings had spacious halls for lectures. All these buildings were surrounded by a strong wall. Courses taught. Like the other universities, this university also provided only specialized instruction in various subjects at the collegiate level. The standard of attainment expected of the alumni must have been very high because admission was restricted only to those who aspired to become Buddhist monks who were to preach Buddhist gospel in far-off lands. The institution represented the Mahayana form of Buddhism, a more assertive cult as the name itself indicates. As the Mahayana form, however, presupposes the Hinayana and is a development of the same. Buddhist textbook belonging to both these branches of Buddhism must have been taught here. Along with these, all the important branches of Hindu learning were also taught, although they could not be classified as a Buddhist in nature. This can be explained by the fact that Buddhism is not an entirely new religion as some believe. It is merely a phase of Hinduism, and in most of its religious and social aspects resembles its parent faith. Some of the details common to Buddhism and Hinduism are Brahmanical practices of asceticism, begging, non-violence, insistence on right habits, and dominance of ceremonies. The courses did not cover all the branches of Hindu sciences, but special stress was laid on grammar, logic, metaphysics, and ritualism. A special significance was attached to tantras, which consists of religious doctrines teaching magical and mystical formularies for the worship of the deities or the attainment of supreme power. It is not difficult to understand why many of the important subjects included in Hindu education were dropped out. The courses taught in the Hindu institutions covered subjects like the 14 Vidyas, the 18 Silpas, and the 64 arts which embrace all the knowledge necessary for a householder. Buddhism was generally speaking averse to any worldly pressure or to the life of a householder. It laid great stress on the evanescent nature of the worldly existence and believed that all existence was a mere shadow and a source of sorrow, and that whatever was seen or felt was an airy nothing. In these circumstances, it is no wonder that they should have rejected the subjects leading to enrichment of worldly life and stressed the renunciatory aspect of education. It is significant to note also that the institutions were meant for prospective bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and the knowledge of items that create fetters for human beings should have been avoided. It is not possible to decide with any amount of precision the duration of the courses. As in Hindu schools, perhaps the time required for mastering the subjects depended upon the intelligence and application of the students, and that it was normally 12 years. They believed in the inherent differences of intelligence and of other capacities of students, and did not prescribe any definite uniform length of time for learning various courses. In Hindu institutions, the practice of giving degree parchments to students successfully finishing of their courses was not in vogue. That was not the need of the day, because knowledge was treated as its own reward. The conferring of degrees in the existing patasalas, which run on ancient lines and teach the same ancient subjects, is of a very recent origin. The authorities of this university used to confer the title of Pandita on those who had finished their courses at the university. This function was usually presided over by the patron king. Tibetan authorities inform us that Jatari and Ratnavajra had received degrees at this university at the hands of Kings Mahipala and Kanaka respectively. It was also customary in this university to exhibit on walls the portraits of such of the alumni as possessed outstanding merit. The object, of course, must have been to pay a grateful tribute to their scholarship as well as to place before other students example worthy of emulation. In accordance with this custom, 2 portraits of Nagarjuna and Atisa were exhibited on the walls of the university. Administration. There were boards in charge of different duties connected with the day-to-day working of the university. One chief abbot worked as the president of these various boards. There was complete academic autonomy, and the teachers in charge of various departments were responsible for the academic work conducted in their departments. In order to ensure a high standard of learning, students were admitted to the university only if they satisfied the test given by the eminent authorities in charge of various subjects. 6 erudite teachers guarded the 6 gates leading to the university. During the reign of Chanaka, the following 6 eminent logicians were posted for the work. Ratna Karasanti was placed at the east gate, Vagis Varakirti at the west, Naropa at the north, Prajna Karamadi at the south, Ratnavajra at the first central gate, and Janana Sri Mitra at the second gate. Teachers and students. The teachers working at the university were well known not only in India but even beyond her frontiers for the depth and the width of their learning. It is as a result of this that the university had developed literary and cultural contacts with Tibet. Scholars from Tibet were particularly interested in the tantras, for the teaching of which special arrangements were made at the university all throughout the 400 years of its existence. It was VIKRAMASILA scholars who, as the custodians of piety, knowledge and religion, have practically built up the culture and civilization of Tibet. Many of these scholars wrote books on various sciences in Sanskrit and translated quite a few in Tibetan. It is said that Atisha alone wrote 200 books, some originals and other translations. It has been pointed out that when the university was started, King Dharmapala of Bengal, its first patron, had appointed 108 teachers and other specialists, making up a total of 114 teachers. Scholars in large numbers poured in from Tibet, for whom a special arrangement for boarding and lodging was made. The number of scholars coming from other parts of India also was not small. We give below a list of names of selected scholars from Vikramasila who have influenced Tibetan culture. Acharya Buddha Jnanapada. He was appointed first as the priest of King Dharmapala and later as the Acharya for ordination at Vikramasila. He became the founder of a new cult of which Vikramasila was the only center in those days. He wrote 9 books on Tantra in Sanskrit, but now only their translation in Tibetan are available. Vairochana Rakshita. He wrote several books in Sanskrit and translated into Tibetan several Tantrika works. Later, he went to Tibet, where he was given the title of Mahapandita and Mahaacharya. Jetari. He completed his studies at Vikramasila and was given the title of Pandita. Later, he worked as a professor at Vikramasila. He taught Sutra and Tantra to Ratnakarashanti, who was appointed as a gatekeeper of the Vihara in about 983 AD. Prajna Karamati. He was one of the gatekeepers of the Vihara and wrote several books, 2 of which are in Tibetan. Ratna Karasanti. He received his ordination in Sarvastivada school at Vodantapuri. Later, he joined Vikramasila. He wrote 13 books in Sanskrit and preached Buddhism in Ceylon, where he was invited for that work. Jnana Sri. He first belonged to Shravaka school, but later became a Mahayana. He wrote several books and translated one of them, the Pranama Vinishchayatika, into Tibetan. Ratna Vajra. He was a resident of Kashmira. After studying Buddhist sutras, mantras and sciences, he joined Vikramasila University at the age of 36. There, he won the title of Pandita and the honor of becoming a gatekeeper. He returned to Kashmira and defeated in argument some Tirthajas and converted them to Buddhism. Later, he went to Tibet, learned the Tibetan language and translated into Tibetan 14 works on Tantra. Vagisvarakirti. He was a gatekeeper at Vikramasila. He belonged to Banaras, was a worshipper of Tara Devi, and wrote a work in Sanskrit named Mrityu Banchanobadesa, Dibangara Sri Jnana alias Acharya Adisa. He was one of the greatest missionaries of Buddhism who travelled to foreign countries. Born in a royal family in 980 AD, he took the sacred vow at 19. At 31, he received the highest ordination. He was the master of both Hinayana and Mahayana, Vaisheshika and Tantras. After completing his education, he sailed to Swarnadipa and was further initiated into the mysteries of Buddhism by Acharya Chandrakirti. There he studied for 12 years. On his return to India, he defeated many scholars and was appointed head at Vikramasila. Later, he went to Nepal at the invitation of King Chanchub of Tibet, who was anxious to purge Tibetan Buddhism of its corruptions, which were many and gross. There he founded a new religion of Lamaism. He worked in Tibet for 13 years and died at the age of 73. About 200 works on Vajrayana are ascribed to him. He also translated 22 Sanskrit works into Tibetan. Virya Sinha. He helped Atisa in translating Sanskrit works into Tibetan. Abhayakara Gupta. He was a native of Gauda, that is Bengal. He became a monk and was appointed by King Rampala of Magadha to perform religious ceremonies at the palace. He belonged to the Mahayana school. He was an eyewitness of the first Turuksha, that means Turuks, invasion of Magadha. He was a great authority on Tantra cult and translated 7 works into Tibetan. Tathagata Rakshita. He was born in a family of physicians in Orissa. At Vikramasila, he received the titles Mahapandita and Ubadhyaya and was a professor of Tantra. He translated a number of books into Tibetan. Ratnakirti. He became an Ubadhyaya, Pandita and Mahapandita at Vikramasila and translated a number of books into Tibetan. Manjusri. He was a Pandita at Vikramasila and a worshipper of Tara. Dharmakirti. He was a native of Tibet. He learned Sanskrit at Vikramasila and translated many Sanskrit works into Tibetan. Sakya Shuribhadra. He was a native of Kashmir. He was a witness of a tragic destruction of Vikramasila by Muslims. Destruction of Vikramasila. The tragic end of this university came in 1203 AD at the hands of Bakhtiyar Khilji, an officer of Qutb-ud-Din. All the Buddhist monks residing at the place had their heads shaven and they were all slain. It has been reported that when the invading Muslims came across the library of the university, they wanted to know the content of the books and searched for someone to give them the necessary information. But the carnage had been so mercilessly thorough that not one was available for the purpose. It is said that the invaders mistook the buildings for a fortress and only later they realized that it was a vihara.